another story that I find to be hilarious, if you need to just take a chuckle to yourself. Now, it's not hilarious for the guy that it happened to, but in the Philippines, everybody likes a good hot dog. And in the US, we love hot dogs too, except we put hot dogs in a bun and we eat the hot dog like that. So a sports coach in Ferris High School in Spokane, Washington was suspended week before last over allegations that he exposed himself in front of students at a cookout at a leadership camp. It is alleged that what the coach did, who was in his 50s, was he put his, man part down there, his, we call them genitals, in the bun and turned around to the guys and said, "You think this is a big dog? Well, take a look at this one." Anyway, a high school player came forward and mentioned the incident to school officials, and the coach has, of course, denied it. However, it went all around school, and every student knows about it. They're Facebooking about it like left and right. So he has now been suspended. And as it turns out, he did not read the school handbook where it says you cannot put your junk in a hot dog bun and show it to students. Let me just go through some other fun news. Patrick Stewart, who is one of my favorite actors, announced that he does marijuana daily for his arthritis. So, okay, good for you, Patrick Stewart. However, there's an interesting related story. Drugs are in the news all the time lately. Well, in Washington at Goodwill. Now, Goodwill is an organization that you can donate stuff to that you don't want, and then they can sell it and they give the money to shelters and food banks for the poor. Well, somebody donated a cooler, a big ice cooler, to Goodwill, and later when the employees were going through it, through the donation, they opened up the cooler and they found 5 large bags of marijuana in the cooler, worth about $24,000 US. Now, marijuana is actually legal in Washington for people over 21 when you have 1 ounce of it. But this was 60 ounces of it, over 60 times over the limit. So I'm assuming right now that there is some teenager who's going into his mom and saying, "Mom, where is the cooler that I left in the garage?" Anyway, so far the police have said that no one has come back to claim the cooler, and they are still trying to find out who left it. In a tech story, and this I think is just, some of these kind of stories are just so incredibly cool. MasterCard is making it so you can buy stuff with your credit card with a selfie. MasterCard has rolled out this new cool app. So when you're making an online purchase, you don't have to type in your password and your PIN. All you do is take a selfie of yourself, just hold up your thing, and it has a program, whatever, and it just looks at who you are, and it has facial recognition software and will authenticate your purchase. You don't have to remember anything. MasterCard spokesman said it's for convenience as one of its motivations for developing the app and through this trial that they're doing. The other thing is it is hopefully mitigating the risk of fraud for card not present purchases, like things you do online, while simultaneously seeking to grease the wheels of e-commerce. So I thought, as I'm thinking to myself, why don't I just steal my friend's credit card and just take a picture of them? However, that's not the way this works. They have thought of this too, and supposedly the app requires that you actually look at your phone, and it's almost like a video, and you have to blink in order for it to confirm that it's really your face in the shot. And the biometrics, by the way, this is the only problem with it, they cannot be changed. So like your password, you can change. You can't change this. So if you have facial reconstruction, or you get beat up, or you have a really bad face day, you might have a problem buying your product with the new app. Moving on to Tokyo, which Tokyo is one of the most high-tech cities in the world. And they're known for having crazy places to hang out, such as love hotels and hammock-themed restaurants, and these things called cat cafes, where you go because you don't have a cat. You can go there, and there's cats there that you can pet. Well, they have this new thing now, and it's the new latest, greatest thing in Tokyo called owl cafes. And these cafes have owls, and you can go there and you can touch the owl, you can stroke their feathers, and have a cup of coffee while you sit there with the owls. This one cafe, which is called Owl Village, has 8 owls, and you can go there. You can take pictures with the owls. They're tied up with a rope so they can't fly away. And you can have your food and drink and sit there and talk with the owls. Now, supposedly in Tokyo, most places, most condos and apartments, they don't allow pets. So this latest, greatest thing is these restaurants that have animals. So you can go and be with an animal, but not actually have to have a pet. Interesting story in Britain this week. There's a play called Lecain, starring Judy Norman, and her co-star is a robot. It's a humanoid robot, a full-size humanoid robot, and the play is about a love affair that she has with this robot. It seems that her husband was a guy who builds robots, and he dies, and he builds this robot for his wife. The Pipeline Theater has worked with robotics company Engineered Arts for this project, and it's currently touring across England. The writer, John Wells, said, "We have pre-programmed every single thing the robot says and does, all the moves. So the robot will always say the exact same thing and move the exact same way depending on the cue that's being triggered at that particular time." The robot is connected to the theater's control room where a laptop transmits cues for the performance. You know, sometimes I wish I had a robot that could stand in for me. But anyway, it's just fascinating now that plays like this now have robots as opposed to humans. Speaking of not necessarily being a robot, but just being dead, there was a study that was released that says that when you die, you can still think for 10 minutes after you're dead. This was evident in an intensive care unit in Canada, in which the life support from a person was removed, and they continued to have conscious brain activity even after all the body parts has completely stopped functioning. Researchers wrote in a study published this past week in the Canadian Journal of Neurology Sciences that a patient's brain continues to fire off bursts of delta waves after circulation and cardiac rhythm has stopped. However, they go on to say that it's difficult, though, to guess what the thoughts of a person might be after a prolonged loss of circulation. However, they have been able to tell that you can think for up to 10 minutes after you're dead. That's something to look forward to. Something else that's interesting news, they did another, I love these surveys. U.S. President Barack Obama, he was always known as a really big reader. And there's been a lot of speculations and jokes going around, of course, that the new president, Donald Trump, doesn't read books or even read his own executive orders. Well, it turns out that not many other people read books either. A new British survey shows that 1 in 5 people can't even name a single author. They warn that there's a section of society that is shut off from the benefits of reading. However, more than half of the 2,000 people in the survey said they don't read, but they wish that they could read. They wish they had a chance to read. When asked what literature author that they could name, the number one author was William Shakespeare. In a related story, they did a thing about, they asked people between the ages of 15 and 34 if they read Facebook. 91% of those people read Facebook every single day. As many as you know, President Duterte signed the Paris Accord on climate change. Well, yesterday, Donald Trump signed the executive order virtually erasing all the laws and policies that Obama had put in place on climate change. Climate change is on the minds of a lot of people. Well, I don't know if you know this, but just recently, in fact, last Saturday, something called Earth Hour happened. It's an hour that happens once a year, exactly at 8:30 p.m. on a certain day, in which you can cut off your lights so that you can see that people can see that you're thinking about climate change. Well, in this past Saturday, 187 countries across 7 continents took part in this event. Millions of individuals, businesses, organizations turned off their lights, including, and I love this, London's Big Ben, the Colosseum in Rome, the Eiffel Tower, the pyramids of Egypt, and Moscow's Kremlin. All turned off their lights this past Saturday at 8:30 p.m. exactly. The initiative began in Australia in 2007 as a grassroots gesture by the World Wildlife Fund. Australia against man-made has a big thing against carbon dioxide emissions, and this was all done basically to show awareness about the warming of the planet. Keeping with our kind of Shakespearean theme today, this is sort of a feel-good story. In a hospital in South Carolina the other day, 2 babies were born at almost the exact same time and in nearby rooms. What makes it so interesting is the parents had never met, and they picked out the names before the babies, months before the babies were even born. The name of the boy was Romeo, and the name of the girl, you guessed it, was Juliet. It seems the boy was named after a rock musician, and the parents of the girl wanted a name with J to match their son, whose first name also starts with J. The whole thing was discovered by a photographer who noticed the name tags of the people and the fact that they were in rooms right next to each other. She later was allowed to take photos of the babies together, which has now been all over the web. It's been said that the chances of this happening again are like seeing Bigfoot getting struck by lightning. Our lawsuit of the week. Every week we pick out a lawsuit. One of the great lawsuits that I can find. There's so many lawsuits. A Moscow zoo is suing an advertising company called Artmisk. They loaned out one of their raccoons. Raccoon is a big kind of furry animal with, looks like it's wearing sunglasses. Anyway, for the people who don't know what a raccoon is. Anyway, they loaned out a raccoon for a commercial shoot, and it was for blankets and a towel ad, something like that. When they returned the raccoon to the zoo, according to the zoo, it was acting strange. Upon later seeing the video and the pictures of the shoot, it seems the raccoon was in a scene with a nude model in which the model's body parts were being covered up by the raccoon. The zoo states in the suit that the raccoon was left traumatized, demoralized, and was sexually harassed during the photo shoot. The suit seeks compensation for damages to the animal's moral well-being, and they must remove all the images from the web. The advertisement studio that's being sued called this suit absolutely absurd. Artemis blames the raccoon for their model's nudity. They contend that the raccoon not only stole the model's bra, but ate it. They say that they had asked for a trained animal, but were given a wild raccoon instead. Animal experts are saying the raccoon was most likely left in shock because of the cameras, the lights, and the photographer, rather than the nudity of the model. I saw the video of this, and I think they're right. I think the raccoon just grabbed her bra and pulled it off because that's just what raccoons do. Dumb thieves of the week. I reported on this humorous bank robbery story. This was a couple of weeks ago, in which after leaving the bank, the robber realized that he had left the keys, his car keys, in the bank, and he ran back to get them, but they wouldn't let him in. And then he was beating on the window. The police pulled up and they arrested him. Well, anyway, last week, something very similar happened in New Jersey. In the U.S., another bank robber was captured after also accidentally leaving his keys in the bank that he had just robbed. The Lakewood police say the 48-year-old was arrested shortly after making off with $2,000 from the Hudson City Bank. He was caught on foot, obviously, fleeing the scene after realizing that he had left his keys. Authorities found his car parked in the bank parking lot and his keys laying on the counter in the bank. He's being held on $130,000 cash bail. As a public service announcement, don't rob banks. But if you're going to rob a bank, don't forget your keys. Just a little announcement there from me. I was just looking through some other great stories. Scientists are now saying that the 5-second rule is okay. What is the 5-second rule? Well, when you drop food on the floor, it's okay to pick it up and eat it as long as it hasn't been there for more than 5 seconds. Germ expert Professor Anthony Hilton from Aston University in Britain says that although retrieving these morsels can never be completely without risk, there is little to be concerned about if the food is only there momentarily. He quotes as saying, "That is not to say that germs can't transfer from the floor to the food. Our research has shown that the nature of the floor surface, the type of food dropped on the floor, and the length of time that it spends on the floor can all have an impact on the number of germs that transfers to the food." It comes as a survey of 2,000 people found that in the survey that 79% admitted to eating food that had fallen on the floor. So basically what he's saying is if you drop your chewing gum on the floor, don't put it back in your mouth. If you drop a jelly sandwich or a jam sandwich on the street and it lands wet side down, don't pick it up and eat it. But if you drop a cookie on the floor in your own house or a cracker on the floor and you pick it up within 5 seconds, you're okay. Everybody loves Ed Sheeran. He is right now has, I think, the #1 song in the world. But this woman from Willand, England, she loves him so much that it has landed her 8 weeks in jail. According to a judge, she played the #1 hit, Shape of You, on a continuous loop for hours and hours and hours at an extreme, unacceptable level. Neighbors said, "I used to like Ed Sheeran, but I've taken him off my playlist because he has driven us crazy." In the court, she claimed that she no longer liked Ed Sheeran. However, the judge, Philip Gregory, didn't buy it and said everyone is entitled to live in a degree of peace and quiet with the usual give and take of society. So she will be doing 8 weeks in jail for playing Ed Sheeran, the song Shape of You. Another incredibly interesting story, and this is from the world of sports. There have been historic days in sports, and then there was the Euro Championship and Iceland. It's a small nation of 300,000 who shocked the world when they beat England at the 2016 Euro Championships. They had the biggest win in Iceland football history just 9 months ago. So during that time, it seems there was, or right after they won, it seems there was a lot of celebrating, a lot of drinking, and a lot of being with your special someone. We know this because here we are 9 months later, as Iceland hospitals have seen a record number of childbirths this past week. In the weekend of this past weekend of March 25th to the 26th, doctors administered the most epidurals to patients in Icelandic hospitals. That's the painkiller that they give you when you're pregnant. They said the hospitals were literally packed with babies. How many of those newborns will be named after the Euro 2016 heroes that won that game in the Euro Championship? That is unknown. However, there are more babies coming out this week than any other time in Iceland history. So anyway, this has been The Jam. I'm Eric Lecain. This is DZRJ Radio 810. I have enjoyed this hour We have had so much fun. I hope you have enjoyed it as much as I have. Next week, we'll be back with more stories, more interesting things that I've found. I'm going to be studying over the next week and bring you some of the most interesting things that I can find that are going on around the world. So until next time, this is The Jam. I can't wait to be back next week here on DZRJ Radio, 810 AM, the voice of the Philippines.